My name's Hugh Shytle, and I'm the president of Clachan Properties. We started Clachan about 12 years ago, and it's a real estate development company, primarily focused in the Southeast. We've done projects in Richmond, Virginia, several towns in North Carolina. We're looking at projects in South Carolina now, and Georgia. So it's in the Southeast. We focus mainly on historic renovations of typically old warehouses or manufacturing facilities built around the turn of the century, and we convert those into primarily residential apartments. So part of our effort is in real estate development, and a part of our effort is in managing the assets that we develop over time. I went to college at Virginia Tech and got a computer science degree, and didn't know what I would do with that. I'm glad I did it, but I decided about 3/4 of the way through that process that it was not a career interest of mine. That is, I've used it over time many times, used that skill set, but I've never really had a computer science job per se. So a computer science undergrad from Virginia Tech, and then I went to the Sloan School at MIT and got a graduate degree in business. And that degree allowed me to kind of pivot away from a technology career towards a more business-oriented career. I would say no. I got a technology degree because when I was in high school, as I looked around at my friends and their fathers and their friends, I looked around and said, I want to run a technology company. And the way I thought to do that was to get a technology degree. As I say, I pivoted away from that and have stayed in technology or oriented towards technology over time, doing a variety of things. As I say, spent some time at Data General, ran a small software company right here in the Boston area, did some technology investing, and through that process was able to get some money to then start my own company. And so the question is, well, why would you start a real estate company? And I guess I always had real estate in the back of my mind, more as a hobby than as a career. You young kids don't know this, but back in the 70s and 80s was a period of high inflation, and the tax laws were different. And so what happened is, at least among people that I knew, is people would buy rental homes, and that was a hedge against inflation. And so in the back of my mind, I always thought, oh, that's a pretty good way to make money. Kind of fast forward to the time where through technology investing, I had got enough money to start a business. I was attracted to real estate, because I really like the business model. I love recurring revenue. I love the idea of the leverage that you get in real estate. And these are all topics that you can learn about over time. But I was attracted to the business model because of the recurring revenue and the leverage. And I guess it was also more tangible than the things I had done in the past. There's something great about being able to go touch the bricks and mortar of the thing that you're working on. Most of my life beforehand had been in software and these other things that are a little less tangible. And so real estate offered something that was mine. I liked the business model, and it was tangible. Yeah, I would say that's true. Um, so I guess it dovetails into kind of how life works. And it's interesting when you get to be my age and you look back and you see the path that you traveled. I had no idea that that was going to be the path when I was your age. And so I guess the issue in your seat is, how do you put yourself in position to take advantage of opportunities? And I guess one piece of life advice as I look back is, get good at something. Get good enough at something that someone's willing to pay you for it. And that puts you in a position of comfort. And then keep learning is point number 2. Always be looking around and saying, okay, well, this is my area of expertise, in my case, computer science. But I was always looking around saying, well, what are other people doing to get more and more comfortable over time? Or what's interesting? And if you kind of get good at something, keep looking around, and remain flexible, you're going to find that you're going to have probably more than one job The number of people that have one job in their life is very, very small. Probably going to have more than one career, right? I had a technology career, a management career, an investing career, and now I have a business where we're deploying our own funds to build that business. And so I would think of those as 3 or 4 different and distinct careers, and that's probably what's going to happen to you and your friends. But just get good at something first. That's, I think, the most important thing, and then remain open, and you'll find that it's going to be a varied path to where you eventually wind up. So a typical day for me is getting up and figuring out what are the hot points in our business. Some days those might be we've got a loan to refinance, or some days that might be we've got a particularly difficult construction issue that needs to get solved, or we've got with our lawyer or our contractor or architect or any of the various players that we deal with, we've got an issue that needs to be dealt with. So spend the first part of the morning trying to figure out what are the hot issues of the day, and those are the problems I need to solve. And I guess you'll hear this from a lot of people. No 2 days are the same, and so to me that's exciting. To other people it might seem jarring, but to me that's exciting. And so again, it really varies. But as president, I don't really do a lot of things. I make sure that things get done. So, sometimes that's writing emails or creating a presentation, but more than likely it's talking to people, and which would be another kind of life skill that I would draw out that I undervalued when I was your age. And it'd be interesting to see if you find when you're talking to people my age whether this is a common theme, but I undervalued communication as a skill. When I was in grad school, we had to take a communications class, and I thought that was such a throwaway. What a waste of time. I want to learn about finance, or I want to learn about marketing, or some hard skill set that I could be good at and get paid doing. And that's important, but being able to communicate is critically important. And it gets more important as your career progresses. So obviously communication is both verbal, being able to talk to people, being able to persuade people, both in verbal and in written form, being able to talk in front of groups. But I would say I spend a lot of my time convincing people and getting people to do things, either verbally or in a written communication. Well, I say I look forward every day to the win. I like to win at things, and it really doesn't matter as much to me if that win is getting a loan in place for a project, or getting a certificate of occupancy for a project, or getting it leased up, or convincing a lender to do the next deal, or so it really doesn't matter what it is. But I do kind of crave the win, and you don't get a win every day, but the working up to a win can be as satisfying. So I would say that my job is not really activity focused. It's not, some people's jobs are, and so they look forward to those activities. I look forward to the wins. So what are the negatives of this life? Well, one of the challenges is in a small real estate company, you are personally guaranteed on the loans. And so what personally guaranteed means is if the loan were to go bad, let's say, the loans are designed to be serviced by the rents. And great care is taken to make sure that the loan is not so big or onerous that you won't be able to pay it back. But if things change, let's say the world changes. A couple years ago, we had a financial crisis. If things change, you're on the hook for the loan. And so it is nerve-wracking to be on the hook for loans that are an integer multiple of your net worth, right? So if things were to go really bad, you can lose it all. And that's different than a guy who's a lawyer or a programmer or a doctor who isn't typically personally guaranteed on large loans. I would say the single biggest negative of An entrepreneurial real estate business is that you're personally guaranteed on those loans. And if you keep developing, you increasingly add loans on which you're personally guaranteed. As you get projects done, you can put them into a different pile, which are loans that are not personally guaranteed. Those are non-recourse loans. I don't want to go into a whole real estate spiel, but I would say the biggest negative is the kind of the ongoing risk that the world changes so dramatically that you're not able to service the loans, and then you've got a lifestyle problem. The question is about travel and what it's like to be a part of a business in the Southeast when you live here in New England. And I would say a couple things about that. One is my partner, who I have an inordinate amount of trust in, is down there, and so we always have kind of partner level eyes on a project at any one time. And so it's both a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, being so remote from the assets and the business, I'm not the one that gets the call at 1 in the morning if there's a call at 1 in the morning. I don't typically have to interact with the employees. I don't typically have to interact with the residents. And so I'm kind of farther away from the problems. And that gives me a fair amount of work flexibility. I dress as I want. I work out of my house, so it's a very good commute. So those are the positives. The negatives are sometimes I do need to be down there to meet with people, bankers or investors or, mayors of small towns, whatever it is. And so sometimes I need to be down there, and consequently I travel. I would say in the early parts of this business, I used to travel pretty religiously every other week. I've kind of backed that off as time has gone on. But in a prior life, when I was working for a Wall Street firm, I used to travel a lot. So I got used to travel. My family got used to me traveling. And so I would say by comparison, the travel for Clachan is less than I was used to in the past. So it's not a problem. In fact, I think there's some benefit in getting away every now and then. And also I grew up in the Southeast. And so I'm very comfortable down there. And so I don't view it as a negative. Some people might. When do you run into problems in the real estate business? One thing I haven't told you is about 2/3, maybe about a half of our assets today are college apartments. So they're located within walking distance of a university in downtown Richmond. That particular university is VCU. It's landlocked, and so it's hard to build apartments nearby. The university is growing, so apartments are in high demand. So we've converted a number of historic buildings around VCU into apartments. The college apartment rental market is a terrific market. The college is not going away. There's demand every year. And as I say, it's hard for competition to come into the market. Those are the positives. The negatives include about 2/3 of your apartments turn over every single year. So every single year between June 15 and August 15, you have to re-rent your apartments and turn them, which means you've got to go in there and paint them and make sure that things that were broken by last year's tenants don't affect next year's tenants. So I would say in the student apartment market, the summer is the stress time. Since we do historic buildings, often these buildings are 100 years old or more. They're in various states of failure. And so, and they often weren't designed as residences. They were designed as warehouses or manufacturing facilities. So a little bit of water that gets in is not the end of the world. Obviously, if a little bit of water gets into your apartment, you're an unhappy resident. So anytime it rains hard, as it turns out in the historic apartment market, is a problem because water infiltration is a kind of a never-ending task. So I would say those are the two big seasonal issues in our business. For the audience for this, if you're interested in real estate, I'm sure you will be able to get in. As I said earlier, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry with all kinds of facets. And I'm just, kind of talking about my little part of the world, which is a little sliver of real estate. But looked at more broadly, if you're interested in real estate, if you're interested in the business model, if you're interested in something that's tangible, you can definitely get in. And that's it's not like some industries that might go in and out of favor. It's going to be around for a long, long time. So if you're interested, certainly you can get into it. And then the question is, well, how do you get into it? What would you study? And what would you? And I would say I got into it in a non-standard way. If you wanted to get into it by doing a bunch of other things for 20 years, getting some money and starting my own company. That was the way I did it. Getting into it in a more standard way, you would probably study finance or architecture or urban planning or something like that, maybe law. And then you would just look out for opportunities in the real estate space. And again, they're so varied, it would be hard to list them all. But in a $1 trillion industry, that's people need places to live. People need places to house their business. If our economy, if kind of the U.S. continues to grow and continues to attract people, there will almost forever be opportunities in real estate. I would say you can apply a bunch of different skills. It's not a place where biotech is particularly valuable, but if you have a law background, there are a lot of legal aspects to real estate. If you have a finance background, there's a lot of finance aspects. Operations management, urban planning, as I say. Kind of the architecture is another enormous impact on real estate. So if any of those areas are of interest to you, you can find a spot in kind of real estate broadly writ. Again, kind of relating it to mine, I'm not an architect. I'm not any one of those things. I'm kind of the generalist, but I couldn't get my job in another company. You have to create you have to create the company to get this job. And so I would say the skills that I rely on most are an ability to communicate. First of all, I understand finance by having gotten a graduate degree in finance and spent some time on Wall Street. So I understand finance. I understand a little bit of operations, and I know how to manage people, and I know how to persuade people. And I would say that those things, those skills are important in my day-to-day life. But again, particularly starting out, get good at something. It can be law, it can be finance, it can be operations management, it can be anything. Get good at something, and you'll find a way to get someone to pay you for that, and then you can grow from there. Anything else I want to say about it? I guess I would just go back to, it's easy for me to look back and see all the different twists and turns that my life have taken. And I guess, but it was impossible to know that in your seat. And so I would just say to everyone that's young and thinking about college, and particularly this group that's going to look at this video, don't be afraid. You don't know what's going to happen, but don't be afraid of that. Just get good at something, study hard, and keep looking around and remain flexible. But don't be afraid. You can't paint the whole picture today. But as you get my age and look back, I'm sure it'll be a promising career.